3 nights after 2 lovers were found executed in Central Park with bullets blasted through their heads and a handwritten note left beside their bodies, it happened again. Another man, another woman, another park. Both shot at close range. Blood sprayed across the ground, bodies deliberately arranged after death. The same handwritten message placed beside them, while the killer vanished back into the city without leaving a witness behind. Detective Geathers, tell them what the second scene looked like when you arrived.
The second woman's jaw was hanging open when I got there, because the bullet entered beneath her cheekbone and shattered upward through her face before exiting behind her ear. Blood had pooled underneath her head and hardened into the dirt beneath her hair. The man beside her had been shot directly through the eye. The round destroyed the socket, exited the back of his skull, and left pieces of tissue and bone scattered across the grass several feet behind him. Both bodies were still warm when patrol found them. Steam was rising off the blood in the cold night air. That was the second scene. Prospect Park. 3 nights after Central Park. Same kind of execution, same close-range shots, same calm arrangement of the bodies after death. And beside the woman's arm was another folded piece of paper with the exact same sentence written across it. They were doing naughty things. That was when the case changed from horrifying to infected. The first scene could still be explained away by people desperate to believe violence belongs to isolated moments. But the second scene destroyed that comfort completely. The killer had repeated everything. Same control, same staging, same wording, same silence. Even the positioning of the victims was nearly identical. The woman slightly turned. The man positioned unnaturally after death. The killer was recreating his own violence. That is what made the second scene psychologically worse than the first. Repetition. Repetition removes doubt. At the first scene, we still question whether the note reflected genuine moral obsession. By the second scene, the murders had become performance. The killer wanted the story understood a certain way and was disciplined enough to repeat every detail until the narrative became believable. That is what terrified me. Not the blood, the consistency. The second male victim still had brain matter on the collar of his jacket when I leaned down beside him. The woman's blood had dried across his sleeve because she collapsed partially against him after she was shot. The medical examiner later confirmed what the scene already suggested. He died first. She lived several seconds longer. Long enough to understand the man beside her was dead before the gun turned toward her face. That detail kept getting worse every time we reconstructed the killings, because the victims were not attacked in frenzy. They were controlled, approached quietly, shot efficiently, then arranged afterward like the killer needed the bodies to tell a story once the life had left them. That level of composure is rare, and when it repeats, it becomes terrifying.
So now the city is staring at 2 double murders, identical notes, identical staging, identical executions. The killer appears disciplined, calm, and completely in control. Detective, at that point, did you believe you were hunting a religious fanatic or somebody deliberately pretending to be one?
By then, I believed somebody wanted us trapped between both explanations. That was the real danger of the second scene. Everything fit too perfectly. A moral killer targeting couples involved in affairs. Punishment, shame, judgment. The note pushed us there immediately. And because the second scene repeated the first almost exactly, people started accepting that explanation emotionally, before we had evidence proving any of it. That is what stage violence does when it is done well. It creates comfort inside horror. The public began focusing on morality instead of murder. Talk radio exploded with theories about religious extremism. Reporters discussed affairs more than executions. The killer's message was working exactly as intended. He had turned attention toward scandal while distracting everyone from the structure underneath the blood. That structure was what bothered me. Nothing changed between the scenes. That matters. Real emotional killers evolve accidentally. Panic changes things. Fear changes things. But this killer repeated details precisely. Same wording. Same placement of the note. Same arrangement of the victims. Same controlled shots to the head. Same lack of struggle. Same quiet departure afterward. That is not emotion. That is rehearsal. The investigation split immediately. One direction focused on religious motive, fanaticism, moral cleansing. The second direction focused on staging, a killer using morality as camouflage to hide the real reason for the murders. Both theories worked. That was the problem. When two explanations fit perfectly, it usually means someone built the scene specifically to force investigators into choosing between them. So I stopped looking at the note and went back to the bodies. The positioning kept bothering me. Both couples were arranged similarly after death. The killer spent time beside them once the shooting was over. That detail matters because positioning requires calm. It requires patience. It requires someone emotionally steady enough to kneel beside bleeding bodies without urgency overwhelming them. That kind of killer does not suddenly appear. He develops. And the deeper we went into the victims' lives, the stranger the case became because there was absolutely no connection between either couple. Different boroughs, different careers, different backgrounds, no overlap in social circles, no financial ties, no shared history, nothing. That was when I realized something that frightened me more than the killings themselves. The victims were not selected because of who they were. They were selected because of where they were seen. That changed the case completely.
So the couples had no connection at all. Different lives, different boroughs, different histories. The only thing linking them was that the killer saw them together before they died. Detective, what did that realization do to the investigation?
It made the case immediate. Until then, we were investigating murders that had already happened. But once I understood the couples were chosen randomly after being observed together, the investigation stopped feeling historical. It became active. Because if he selected them after seeing them, then he was still out there looking. That was the psychological horror underneath the entire case. He was not hunting specific people. He was hunting moments, private moments, affairs. Couples meeting secretly in parks late at night believing darkness protected them. He watched them first, followed them quietly, waited until isolation gave him control. Then he stepped out of the darkness, executed them, arranged the bodies, left the note, and disappeared before anyone understood what happened. That meant somewhere in the city another couple was probably already being watched while we were still processing the second crime scene. That realization poisoned the entire investigation, because now every park looked dangerous. Every isolated bench, every hidden path, every couple sitting too close together after midnight suddenly felt exposed. And the worst part was understanding the killer likely looked completely ordinary while he watched them. No panic, no rush, no visible rage, just patience. That is what made him terrifying. Not the bullets, not the blood, the waiting. And standing over those second bodies in Prospect Park, with blood drying beneath them exactly the way it had dried beneath the first two victims, I realized something else that stayed with me long after we left that scene. The killer was no longer experimenting. He was becoming comfortable.
Thank you for watching this episode of The Case Files of Detective Shiela Geathers. We invite you to return and watch the rest of this exciting story when we return later this week with another episode. Have a great evening.